Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for today's TWG Plus webinar series. Today we've got a really interesting topic for you, we hope, called Developing Cross-Channel Personalization in Your Next Campaign. This one's going to be a little bit different. Some of our recent efforts have focused on things like search, on yield communication, specifically on print publications. Today we decided to take an adventure into the digital world and really look at modern marketing trends that are being used across various industries and how we can apply them to higher ed marketing and specifically to enrollment building. And we thought the best way to do that today would be to invite our Senior Director of Technology, Tom Bartling, to join us. So Tom is going to be here, and we're going to run this as a Q&A to really tap into Tom's expertise and hear his opinions on current and upcoming trends. So welcome, Tom. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everybody.
And thought, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with, what do you think in general, Tom, the current trends in marketing are?
Oh, yeah, that's a good place to start. So what we're seeing with the trends right now is that there are several that work really well with higher ed. You see listed here, we've got more and better video. What that means is short videos. Short videos are ideal because you want to have, people have short attention spans, and you want to have just a little bit of content that they can grab onto pretty quick and then move on. I would say consider short, silent videos that have text on top. That would that works well for people that are on mobile. When you're in a in a public place and you're watching a video, you don't want the audio to just start blaring out. So it's really considerate of people who are on mobile. And since students are really on mobile most of the time, we want to be considerate of them. Also, you want to grab their attention early. The fact that everybody's attention span on the web is so short, starting off with something that's engaging earlier in the video, in the first few seconds, is ideal. Also, with videos, what you want to do with the content, it's great to make the content about shared values. It's helpful for the school, obviously, to show who you are. When you have a video that's all about, a sales pitch, nobody's really interested in that. But if you're showing students who are serving the community, or if you have a professor who's talking passionately about their field, that's really engaging and interesting. And people like those kinds of videos, and those tend to be a little bit more shareable. We're also seeing live video streaming. That's a new thing that's coming up. It hasn't really been around much before. Both YouTube and Facebook have services that let you have live broadcast. It does take a little bit of an investment in time and effort, but it's great for events. And I think it's great for schools who are, having events, whether it's a big event or something that's a little bit smaller and more targeted, but it's great.
And Twitter is doing that too through what used to be Periscope, right, Tom?
Twitter is also doing that. Twitter certainly encourages that, and there's a lot of there are a lot of activity. A lot of brands use that sort of thing. I'm not as familiar with Periscope because Facebook really is really dominating that as far as video is concerned. So it's a definitely an interesting area.
Okay, great.
The chatbots is the other thing that comes up a little bit. The chatbots are so a chat bot is an automated chat. It's very much like Siri that's on your iPhone. It's artificial intelligence that answers questions, which is great, but I'm a little leery of it. So I mention it because there is excitement in the market, but I would say hold off on it before you jump into that. If you want to try it, experiment in a contained area. Don't just open it up to everything. But it's something to look for in the future. I like the idea. It just needs to mature more. The focus on niche marketing is really important. In the business world, people are doing that more and more. They're seeing that when they focus on smaller groups who are interested in buying, they get better results. In higher ed, we typically use predictive modeling and segmentation. And I know a lot of schools already do that. I think we'll see that more and more. The idea of getting that down and doing predictive modeling better, more and better, I think is helpful because when you first start off with predictive modeling, it's really based on assumptions and data, and those assumptions and data change over time as you learn more and get better at it. So that will definitely be an evolving area of the market.
And I think that's actually one time if I can jump in for a second. With higher education, I think sometimes the word niche can be it can be a negative. It can make, are you trying to pigeonhole it, an institution, a whole university into one particular niche? What we're talking about is really, or what you're talking about is really trying to identify the specific programs within a university. So, or identify exactly what a student might be interested in and market that to them. So it doesn't mean that you're saying that your institution is small in scope or fits a certain niche, but you're trying to get to where that student is so that you're really piquing their interest. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right on. We're more
Okay.
interested in the like I look at it from a segmentation point of view. How do the students fit in with the different programs that you have? And and I'm not I, I I think that the predictive modeling and the segmentation helps you actually segment your audience better so that you can attract the right students and more of the right students. So that it's definitely not about positioning the school itself. It's about identifying the right students,
All right,
which
great, thanks.
I think, yeah, and that's a great question. I think that all of that also goes into the personalization aspect of it because personalization is golden. That's a hot topic right now, and it's a fantastic tool to use if it's done right. I think in the past, what we've typically done is you just put the name of the person on top of the email, hi Chris, and then everything else is the same. The idea with personalization is that what we really want to do is have photos and a little bit of copy that matches their interests better. What we're trying to do is make the personalization about them so we can build a better connection with the student. And in doing so, that also leads into having a strong focus on engagement because you're trying to build a connection with a student. You do that through engagement, and that's a really important topic with the way that people work or live right now. Students are on their phones; they're always clicking around or tapping around, and going from one thing to the next, and that's all engagement. In general, in the broader business world, people engage with a brand longer before buying because they can spend more time just sitting at home on the web or on social media to do a little bit of research. So they engage more with it rather than just going to the store and buying. They engage with it a little bit more. But this is especially true for decisions that take a long time. And obviously, choosing a college is something that you're going to, spend a lot of time on. So this is a good pairing for higher ed. It's also very, very important for email marketing. With email marketing, you really need to focus on engagement. The more that people interact with emails, the more likely they're going to get into the inbox. So if you think about emails from just more of a shotgun approach, just we'll send out a bazillion of them, that's not necessarily going to work as well as it has in the past because the email companies, particularly Gmail, have gotten so much better at it that they can see that if you do send out 20,000 emails or 50,000 emails, if the first batch of people really aren't engaging with it at all, the emails that are sent later on in the send don't don't open or they don't inbox because they're not treated. Google doesn't necessarily think that they're that important and that people aren't interested in them. So focusing on engagement is crucial. With that in mind, I also like the idea of doing video in email. This has been around for a little while, but it hasn't been consistent. The technology hasn't been there, and that's been an issue. So we have held back on promoting that. The technology is getting better. There's a fallback. You can usually, if the email program that you use doesn't display video, usually if you click on it and it goes to it'll open up a browser and display the video that way. So that works, and we've done that with emails before, where we just do that for everybody. But having the video in the email is definitely something that's more engaging. So we're looking at doing that.
So with that, is it if the video's in the email, is it, how would you get the student to, if the student's able to watch it, then, one of my questions would be, what's the incentive then to take that next step, to jump to the website, to apply, to take them to the spot from the email where you want them to go? So would you put a strong call to action in in that video so that when they're done watching it, the video itself tells them, hey, do this? Um,
Um, that's a good question. Not necessarily. You could do that, but the idea of having a short video, it doesn't, the whole email doesn't have to be the video. You can have a call to action that's below it or above it. But if the video is about, it's showing, the campus life, then you could have a call to action that's after that then drives people to the landing page, check out more clubs and organizations, that sort of thing.
gotcha.
If it's a video that's a little bit more personal, and we've seen this before where it's like the director of admissions talking to the student, then that kind of video would be great to have a call to action at the end, because it's really a conversation that the person is having with the person who's opening the email. So it just depends on the content of the email.
Great, I like that a lot.
So Snapchat. If you haven't heard about Snapchat, then you're probably living in a cave. It's really important, and it's something that all of the people in Gen Z are on. And if you're not familiar with it, you really need to get familiar with it. So there is a publication, and I'm mentioning this because this gives you some insight into what the world is like for Gen Z. But there's a publication that is exclusively on social media. They don't have any print, and they don't even have a website. It's called Obsessy. Their target audience is girls in Gen Z. I would strongly suggest that you check it out. It not only gives you an idea of what they're talking about, but it gives you an idea of what their experience is like. And that experience is it's unique to them. I mean, if Snapchat has been around for a relatively short period of time and it's taking off now, there's a lot of creativity that's going into that, and it's phenomenal. And that particular publication, Obsessy, is very insightful, I think, from our point of view. So I really like that. Check it out.
Well, and it's interesting too because Snapchat is such an interactive medium. I mean, Snapchat is purely about engagement and getting people to really kind of talk back and forth with each other, right? So
Yeah.
if you a lot of what you focused on here, beyond Snapchat, which is social media, but even looking at emails, looking at your video, chat box, talking about niche to try to really hone in on the right people and to make sure that your message is getting to the right person. All of it is about getting them to engage, and trying to figure out how to get them to open up a dialogue or an ongoing conversation with the institution. So what's the best way to look at all of those different channels and really encourage students to actively engage with the institution?
Yeah. Great question. So the best way, I think, is to start off with the basics, right? So everything is about engagement. Start off with the basics to make sure that you're doing all of the fundamental things properly. When you're sending out emails, make sure that you have interesting subject lines. Make sure that you have pre-header text that draws the student in. Include clear calls to action. Use well-designed templates. You don't want to drive them away by something boring, and make sure that it works on all the email programs. So it needs to be mobile friendly, all that, and test. Make sure that as you're going through your campaign, make sure that you're testing along the way so that you can test subject lines and you can test individual actions and individual items. So with subject lines, you're testing to see if you can increase the open rate. With pre-headers, you're also testing for open rate. Calls to action, change the wording a little bit to test, just the normal basic fundamental stuff. I would say making search more casual is also something that we don't really see a lot of. Most people look at what we do as marketing, which is what we're doing. But really what we're doing is we need to be aware that we're creating experiences, and more specifically, we're creating micro experiences. The the idea of somebody having a casual conversation, or seeing something casually on the web, seeing a little video, that's a lot more casual than getting an email that says our school's great, and those direct mail, direct emails are great. They get results, but I think with the huge focus on engagement, it's better to start with something casual, such as creating easily digestible content, and use that for social media, and then build on it in your search campaigns. So when I say easily digestible, I mean like 3 things you must have for your dorm room, or 5 ways to avoid missing the big scary application deadline. That those are real casual, and you're not selling the school. You're talking about the same things that the students either are thinking of or probably want to be thinking of. Continue that
Right.
concept with your email. So,
Right, because students are so savvy right now, and they know when they're being sold to. So,
oh
like,
yeah,
it's like what you want to do is realize that sometimes you need to have that message. We want you to apply. We need you to get certain hard facts, about programs, deadlines, whatever. But at the same time, they're not always going to be in the mood to hear that kind of communication. So you need to mix it up and offer them a combination of, more traditional, sort of static marketing. Not maybe not static, but more traditional marketing messages, but then also these more conversational tones. More kind of easygoing things, fun things that just get them to interact. Not every email or not every communication has to immediately engender a follow-up action, but it's a long game trying to get them to ultimately engage over a long period of time, apply, and develop a deeper connection when they finally do actively raise their hand and express their interest.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
when and so creating that easily digestible content, I like the idea of creating it for, like, the idea of cross-channel for me is, I think of creating content that can be used in a bunch of different places. So I would personally, I'd say create 3 things that you must have for your dorm room, and then do a photo with text on top that's got like little check boxes, little fun check boxes, that kind of thing. Um, and then a video that might say the same kind of thing, very short video that has the same little bit of info, that's really focused more on showing the cool things that you must have for your dorm room. But then continue that with the concept with email, so that the email is 2 even better ideas for a rockin' dorm room. The idea of them, if they've not seen anything before, if you start off with 2 even better ideas, right off the bat they're thinking, what did I miss? These are cool ideas, but what did I miss? And then they might go back to the social media, and they're engaging with that. Um, Even if they don't do that, it's still starting the conversation casually.
What's really
The
cool about that too,
mhm.
what I like about what you're saying there is that it's a great use of time and resources. If you've got students in front of you, or if you're brainstorming these topics, if you've got the student and you're in their dorm and you can take their picture and you can get them quickly on video and you can do it all in one shot, you can really make the most out of, anything, out of a photo shoot, out of an interview, you can get all of this great content in one piece, as opposed to saying, okay, thinking about it as, oh my God, I've got to generate content for Snapchat. I have to generate content for the email. I've got to generate content for the video. If you go into it with this idea of cross-channel, you could really just make a robust, make the most out of 1 hour, let's say, of time, and hit all the channels, as opposed to thinking, all right, I've got 5 channels and it's going to take me an hour each to get that kind of content. So it's really practical, as well as being something that it sounds like it can be daunting, but in reality, I think it could be really practical.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think, if you think very, if you think like, I'm taking this photo for one thing, then then it does add to the pile of stuff you have to do. But if you think about it in terms of, I can do, I can do a video, I can do a photo, I can do, all these different things, or I can take this photo and use it in email this one way and put text on it and use it as social media in this other way, and then change it up so that it's got the two even better things for another email. It can definitely be spread out across a bunch of different channels and just used in different ways without having to do 18 different photo shoots. With that in mind, um, when they get that email, right? So I think the idea of having these casual conversations with search earlier is great, but you tend to move from casual to a little bit more serious, right? And because you're introducing yourself essentially, it's just a longer conversation. You want to encourage engagement with the question. So if you've got the email that says two even better ideas for a rockin' dorm room, you might want to show them four photos of a dorm room, and then tap your fave, and then they tap their fave, and it goes to the landing page. Certainly want to have the normal calls to action. If they get an email from a school that they're really interested in, and it doesn't have a schedule a visit button someplace, then I think that's a problem. You always want to capture the students that are really interested, at that point in time. But when they get to the landing page, then show them the photo of the room that they chose with, some fun stuff like, a shopping list so they can go buy the items to make the dorm room like, to make their dorm room like that, and then have a friendly call to action that's, schedule a tour of our dorm rooms today. So that's really, I think, a nice way to have a good conversation, but still, drive home the point that, they need to be scheduling a visit. It's good to test all of these. I like the idea of having casual conversations. Some schools might have a great response with that. Some schools might have a little bit, better response with more traditional marketing. So it's always good to test everything and have fun with it. The students are normally going to be in a fun frame of mind because they're messing around on the web anyway. So, make it a little bit more casual and fun.
No, I like that a lot, and I agree with you, and definitely, I think we're seeing more and more when we do focus groups with Gen Z students that, they want to interact, and they want to, they're serious about the college search process, certainly, and they're not taking it lightly, but anywhere that they can have, they want that combination of serious information as well as lifestyle information. Can I picture myself there? Does this place match my personality? Am I going to fit in? So I think that by introducing some personality and fun, if you will, into the emails, you can give them that feel as well as giving them the general information.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think that is easily overlooked is the students are making a major lifestyle change. If they're moving out of mom and dad's house and they're moving into the dorm, that's a pretty big deal. And that has a lot of there's a lot of psychology there, I think. And we tend to think frequently of we're trying to get them to apply, and that's very cold and hard and kind of boring. But the cool things about going away to college are really the place where you need to start the conversation, because that's what gets them excited. So yeah, it's definitely a good way to connect with students.
And that, in a way, that leads me into our next question, which is, uh, you want to make it exciting for that particular student, but that means knowing who the student is and being able to really personalize the email so that it's not, as you said earlier, a buckshot approach, but so that you could really say, I want to engage this particular type of student, and I know that this tactic is how I want to do it. So, you know, how would you use use personalization to increase interest in a school, or how would you? What tools can you use to really maximize that personalization?
Okay, yeah, um, a good question. With engagement, what you're doing is you're creating experiences. With personalization, you're creating connections. And so with the personalization aspect, um, some there are some basic things that you should do, like using predictive modeling and segmentation. We talked about that. That's a pretty standard thing to do. But what that does is that helps you identify the people who, it helps you just, I guess, group people so that you know exactly what it is that you want to, how you want to talk to them. The determining which data points will be personalized, that one is, that's a little I guess, techie the way that I'm describing that, but really what you're trying to do is you're trying to identify, you're trying to optimize your process. You're trying to identify the 4 or 5 things that you want to be personalized. So when you're sending an email out and you're personalizing it, I'd say, identify the areas that you want to be personalized. So it might be, are they more interested in academics or athletics or student life, or is it a faith-based organization? So are they identified in the faith aspect? And and then have like on email, for example, you might have a header photo and an intro paragraph that matches that personalization. And the same thing for the landing page. That kind of personalization, it's either it it can be a little bit more subtle. You're not just coming out and saying, hey, we know that you're interested in athletics, or whatever the point is, but it's definitely it's definitely something that helps you. I don't know. I'm kind of getting off track here because it's really the kind of thing that you need to do to stay organized when you're putting together the overall campaign. And like I mentioned, you use variable content on both emails and landing pages so that you display that variable information.
Excellent.
So
And and actually, I want to jump in for a quick second, Tom. We had somebody already ask a question via the chat tool here, and I just wanted to let all of our listeners today who are with us live know that please, we encourage you to ask questions. We will collect them and answer as we go, or at the end of this webinar, towards the end, we'll do a brief Q&A session too. So if you hear anything that Tom is saying that you want to inquire more deeply about, please feel free to go into the chat box and send the question out to us, and we will definitely get to that. So sorry about that, Tom. I just want to make sure that people know that they are welcome to engage us deeper.
yeah, no, thanks for saying that. I kind of go off on a tangent every once in a while. Okay, so the those were I guess what I would call the essential or the basics. These these bullet points here are definitely a little bit more advanced, and they're really helpful as you're continuing to do more and more personalization. The idea of passively collecting data and keeping the personalization fresh, really what that means is, you know, like I just was talking about with the header photo and the intro paragraph, when when you're displaying the personalization for the student, you want it to be what their interests are on the email and then on the landing page. But by passively collecting that information and keeping it fresh, you can update that as they go along. Maybe you have them identified as being interested in athletics, and they get the email and it's got the athletics personalization, but they click a link that's all about student life, and it gets to the landing page. Well, change the header photo on the fly and have it display the student life info and maybe a welcome message that's all about student life. It's subtle, and I think it helps form that connection. In fact, I know it helps form that connection because you're seeing things that you're interested in at the moment, which is really because everything is so in the moment on the web and for Gen Z, that having that update, in real time it can be very powerful over time. Little small micro experiences tend to add up to great, a big experience, which is, could be a really positive thing. Using date-based content in emails, obviously your email service provider needs to be able to accommodate this, but I like the idea of doing something like, join us this Saturday for a tour of our beautiful campus, and then if they open the email afterwards, it actually says something like, oh, you missed it. We really had a great event, that kind of thing. And so that approach is a little bit more present. It's a little bit more immediate in terms of what their experience is, and it's not, I think, it's not stale. So it brings them in the moment, and it helps people connect. The
We've actually
personalized.
seen, I like that a
Mhm.
lot, Tom, especially with the date-based and making it real to the student or making it very present. We've seen some interesting success with some of our clients in areas where even something as simple as weather can be a big factor. If you have the ability to send emails on the fly or on relatively short notice, we've seen things where we did things that were clearly relatively spontaneous. There's a big snowstorm and all the local schools are going to be canceled in your area. So send out an email that says enjoy the snow day. Or why not take advantage of the snow day by checking out this video of our campus, or submitting your application now. Something that really shows the student like, wow, they know where I am. They're maybe they're local to me. They know what's going on, and it's something like that I think gives a different vibe than sort of your regular pre-scheduled generic email that's going out.
Yeah, yes, definitely. That's certainly much more personal, and people connect with it because, it's like we all recognize, oh, today's a snow day, yay, which is great. And it's just one more small thing that helps form that connection. So that's a great example. I love it when schools do that. The personalized videos, the personalized videos are, generally they're short videos. They have the video itself is not personalized, but there's text on top of the video, which is got their name and like a welcome message, that sort of thing. And that can definitely be a fun thing to do, especially if there's like if it's tied with something like they've been accepted. Send them an email that says you've been accepted, hooray! And it's cool, cool little short video, but it's got their name on top of the video, and it just makes it just that much more. The students are more, they think more like, oh, they thought of me, or wow, they did that. That's cool. They did that for me.
Now, for somebody who is not technically savvy, perhaps, and for whom, personalizing something like a video seems more like magic, how difficult is that? Is that something that the average school can pull off relatively easily, or is that something that is more complicated, expensive, that sort of thing? Where does it fall on the scale?
It's a little bit more complicated. It does require, either a service or somebody that can create that for you. We can certainly do that. Our approach is, the idea of like I said, having a video that's like a generic video, and then we don't create the video, the personalized version of the video individually. We do that programmatically so that we can put their name in, and it displays that. So it is possible, but it is a little bit more of an investment in terms of I think time and money, because creating videos does take some effort, I think, but
But it's
it's
okay,
doable.
gotcha. It's doable, and it's not something that's nearly as complicated as trying to, shoot videos with, one person saying a bunch of different first names, or incorporating the personalization into the video itself. So it's something that, as you said, can be overlaid on top and give it that feeling of personalization. But in terms of, shooting the actual videos itself, it doesn't get that complicated there.
Right, right. I mean,
Okay.
if you think about it this way, you create. I mean, you could even do this. You could create like 4 videos based on, if based on interest or segments, or 2 videos in state and out of state, that sort of thing. And then when you create the actual personalized versions of the videos, those are, whether it's the service or it's something that that we're doing, or however, whatever that process is, it's an automated process that can generate those, so you can create a whole bunch of videos just automatically, and it creates that little bit of personalization. So yeah, there's something to, it does take a little bit of time and thought to set it up, but yeah, it can be a powerful thing.
Excellent. That's great. I mean, and I think that's looking at things like like personalization there. As I said, the creating powerful personalization, not just personalization for the sake of showing that you can do it, but picking and choosing when you could do it for maximum effect. Because I think that all of these things are fantastic, but as somebody in in a mission director seat, in a VP seat, in a dean seat. The question is always going to be, great that we can do this, but ultimately, is it going to get the student to take the action that I want? Is it going to build my inquiry pool? Is it going to build my application pool? Is it going to ultimately result in students in seats in the beginning of the semester? So, can you talk a little bit about how we can move from all of this cool stuff and how we can improve, take that engagement that you're generating, and actually turn it into conversions? How do we actually make the student move through the funnel?
Yeah, so that's the goal here, really, right? So, if you've increased engagement and you've really developed connections with people, then it should be much easier to get people, to get students to take that next step, right? And I think when with that long cycle of them making their decision and taking each step and prompting them along the way, hey, you need to pay your deposit, that sort of thing. It's much easier to do when you have made that connection, when they are excited about the school, and when they feel like you get them. If they say, oh, wow, this school really gets me, I love it. The idea of always including what I call transactional calls to action. Now, a transactional call to action, I mean, that's a very marketing-y term. What I look at is you always want to have the prompt for them so that once they feel good, there's that little button somewhere that says schedule a visit today or submit your application. You always want that there because once they make that decision to take the next step, it needs to be super easy for them, which also means that the path to conversion is easy. So when I say conversion, I tend to mean whatever that next step is that you want them to do. So if they fill out a landing page, a form on a landing page, if they request a visit, that's a conversion. If they apply, that's a conversion. Every step through the ComFlow is a conversion, really. But I think it's a little bit harder for higher ed. When I think about how confusing it can be, a great example is the application page, right? Just go to your EDU site, look at the application page, and look at how many different applications that you can fill out. And it can be confusing. And what I've seen is that sometimes there isn't any one like welcome application page for undergrads, and there isn't one for graduates or transfer. It's just everything is all piled on, and that can be a little difficult for a search campaign if you've got a senior who clicks on a search email and it goes to an application page, and then they've just got a whole pile of stuff. It can be confusing. Not that it's like confusing, it's just it's just not as clean, and everything being clean and easy is really important for the process, because anything that is a potential obstacle could slow down the process or even hinder it. With that in mind, though, having much more control over all of that means that it would be easier for you to facilitate that flow, that process. Creating a microsite for just admissions is a fantastic idea. I love that idea. It's something that we've talked about a little bit, and the idea for you to have your own site that is just about admissions and about potential students. You can have all the personalization that you want on there, depending on the tools that you have. You can really personalize it. You can have individual student logins so that they can get a checklist of where they're at and what they need to do. It can be a very powerful tool, and I think it's something that should be considered. And it might be a little bit longer term for a lot of schools to really implement that sort of thing, because you want to make sure that you've got the right budget and you're doing the right thing and you've got the people to come up with the right content for that. But that's a great way of turning the experience that the student has had up to this point into something positive, and you have much more control over that when they're on just an admission site where you don't have to worry about all the other, all the other stakeholders who might have a voice in, how the website overall looks. So I would say consider that. That's a fun, powerful option.
And especially if you could do it in the way that you said, where it can be personalized and not necessarily a student portal per se, but where you can give the student the option to really just focus in on the information they want, or to even recognize a student differently if they are an admitted student versus, a prospective student. And again, it's not something that has to look radically different than the institution. It can still follow the institutional brand, so that you're not getting yourself in trouble with, with the central marketing departments, or, with your brand directors. But it's something that can uniquely serve your needs, whereas often the .edu site is fairly generic, and doesn't necessarily serve the admissions office well.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, it definitely needs to stay on brand. Absolutely, and if it's basically more streamlined for your needs, then and you've got more control over it than the main site. It's a powerful tool. Definitely worth considering.
That's great. We're approaching the 45-minute mark, and we truly do appreciate everybody spending some time with us today. So we want to be respectful of that. Would love to keep a few minutes open for Q&A. If anybody who's on with us live has any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat box, so we will take a look at those. I know that we had at least one earlier, and we've actually got one here that's dealing with CRMs. You know, a lot of schools are moving at the CRMs, and the question is, I don't know how to do all of that personalization with my CRM. And I think that there are a lot of CRMs on the market now, and it is wonderful to see institutions starting to use them more, because it's hopefully now giving each individual institution more power. And I think, to your points, Tom, that idea of personalization, you've always collected a lot of data within the admissions office. You've always, in theory, had a lot, but were you ever able to really use it? Um, Here, in a lot of the tactics that I think that you've been talking about, if that information is resident in a CRM somewhere, as long as you can access it, you can figure out a way to use it to create personalized messages. Am I right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And every system is obviously different, but like I would say start small. The idea of personalizing emails is great. Just, if you think in terms of like when you're building an email in your system, if you've got the variable, you've got the spot where you put their first name. If you've got a way of doing that same thing, but instead of doing first name, doing a different text, different intro text or a different photo, that I've seen a couple of different CRMs that do that pretty well. And that kind of personalization should be the place to start, because once you figure that out and get really good at that, then move on to the next thing. But if you've got questions, definitely call and ask the company that how could you change a photo or display a different photo based on a particular variable in your student database.
Yeah, and something else that might be fun to try would be to take a look at your CRM, especially if it's relatively new to you, and see what data you have captured there that you may not have in some of your older student information systems. If the students applied already, and you're doing yield communications, are you actually tracking in there, or is it accessible fields where a student has indicated non-academic interest? So, and maybe just pick a field like that and try personalizing based on that. Can you pick one field that you've never used before for communication? So I want to talk about clubs and activities that they might be interested in. And if you could figure out a way to group those, and it's easily accessible information, that may open up a whole new type of communication stream, or a whole new idea for an email or a video that you've never used before, because you've never had access to that information, and now you do. So, start small, but also maybe challenge yourself and try something different, to just get you thinking outside your typical box.
Yeah, definitely. And from a I don't know how to do this point of view, sometimes it helps to start with what you do know. like what you just said, if you start with clubs and organizations and group people that way, create an email based on that, and then send that out, and then create another email based on a different interest, send that out, and then start looking at how to make that easier for you and better, and you learn the actual CRM better, which is good for you, and you can make your process a lot more efficient. So it's worth doing. It's worth taking small steps over time and getting better and better at it.
And another question that just came up, and I think that this is one that probably a lot of folks are going to have. We've been talking a lot about personalization, cross-channel communication. So targeting lots of different types of people across lots of different types of platforms to me sounds like a lot of work. And in an office that has a limited budget and limited staff hours, how do you make that all work without overstressing the system?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the approach that I take, first of all, is to start with an overall strategy so that you can have consistent messaging, right? So one thing that's really common is you just hand off a big chunk of work to one company, and you do a big chunk of work yourself, and then hand off another big chunk to somebody else, and it's all siloed, which is fine because you're getting the work done, but there's not like a holistic approach. It's better to have an overall strategy so that you can look at what your messaging is and what content you're creating from that, and then spread it out. So I was talking about the casual messaging earlier on. If you create like the 3 great things for your dorm room, and you create that for your social media, and then you don't share that with us and we're creating direct marketing for you, there can be a huge disconnect there. But we can work better if you've got a strategy in place where you can step in and say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the messaging that we've got for this particular campaign or this year. This is really how we're approaching it. And I would suggest doing that. If it's something that you can do in house and you've got the time and the resources, great. If it helps to bring in somebody else to do that, that's a great option as well. As long as you're comfortable with the company, as long as the company has higher ed experience, that I think is very helpful. And a little bit more, I think, detailed aspect of it is that everybody along the process needs to be aware of what's immediately before and what's immediately after. When we're working on landing pages, for example, if you're aware of what that email looks like or what that PPC campaign is like, you need to be aware of the student's experience, so that as you're creating this, as you're creating your part of it, you want to make sure that it's an even flow as they're going from the place where they were before to the experience with what they're doing on the landing page, and then beyond. Where are they going after that? Is it a nice smooth experience? So when we're working on that, we want to be aware of what all that is like, and when a school is reviewing, it's very helpful for them to think about that student experience all the way through the process, because that's just one chunk of the process that needs to be a smooth and positive experience for the student. You don't want to have any disconnects anywhere.
Excellent. Tom, thank you very much. That was a great answer to that. And overall, thank you for taking a moment to talk to us today about digital marketing and about a lot of the trends that are coming and how to get the most out of it. If I had to ask you to summarize, sort of give me a summary of what are the most important aspects of digital marketing and how I can make it effective for my college or university right now, what would that be?
Well, the main thing is, I'd say engagement. If you focus a lot on engagement, that is just crucial. That is where everybody is right now in terms of marketing, but it's also where all of Gen Z is. Everything they're doing is engaging, and then from more of a marketing point of view, focus on building connections. So engage and build connections, and no matter what it is that you're doing, if you're doing traditional marketing or direct marketing, think in terms of building those connections and in a broader sense, so that um, all of your communication is working towards, engaging and connecting, and definitely think what I would say globally. Think from a big picture, point of view. Not only are students engaging with you with the email that they just opened up, but they're probably going to go look at your website and then check you out on Facebook or see if you've got, an active Twitter account. So if the messaging is consistent all the way across, it's a good positive experience. So, engagement, and then, building connections, and then, making sure that you've got an overall top-down strategy.
Excellent. Well, again, Tom, thank you so much for taking some time to share your insight today. Always love talking to you about stuff like this. And thank you to everybody who joined us live. If you have any follow-up questions, you'll see on the screen now contact information for Tom and for me. Please feel free to reach out to either of us. We'd be glad to engage you further in conversation. And also, check us out at TWG Plus on Twitter or at twgplus.com, where we also have a blog. We offer a lot of things via download. This webinar will be downloaded or will be available for download shortly, but we have a lot of others there. And we also do this monthly. So please keep checking back either via our social media or via our website to hopefully join us for future webinars. Hope you all found this useful today. We enjoyed having you here, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.